If you look at any piece of equipment, there's likely at least two options. The really cheap option that you're maybe shipping in from China, and the really expensive name brand option that everyone oohs and ahs over. Oh my gosh, you're shooting with that? Whoa, that kind of thing. And it can be hard to balance this in your mind. And what I found is that like it's not going one way or the other. You have the people who they swear by the brand name. They only buy name brand stuff, and so everything they get is really expensive. And it's like, oh, I have the best equipment there is, and oh, look at my huge collection. And then you have the other people who swear by like the cheap knockoff stuff, and everything is about cutting the dollars down and just getting the bottom of the barrel pricing on every single thing. They're looking at a strobe, or they're looking at a microphone, or they're looking at a camera, or lens, whatever, and they're cheap, 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 and that's all they want because they think that all that stuff works exactly the same as the really expensive stuff, and they're just paying for the name brand. But really, where you want to be is right in the middle. It's that balance, finding out, okay, what do you need for the particular project, first and foremost, and then, okay, how can you make that work with the budget you have? Because honestly, there's some cheap stuff that's really good and does the job, and the final product, you can't tell the difference between what they use, whether they use the cheap stuff or the expensive stuff. And then other times, you need the more expensive stuff, whether it's for making a good impression on set when you're with the client or whoever else it is you're shooting with. Make a good impression there with the gear. But other times, you need the expensive gear because it works better and it gives you a better result, and someone's paying you a lot of money and you should give them the best result. So what I found, and the balance I kind of like to strike, is the stuff that's cheap is kind of the stuff that like I buy for myself. That's the stuff that I can have at my house ready to go, so that if someone's like, hey, you want to do a fun project for free? Let's go shoot this short film, or let's do this fun project on the side. I have equipment there. I have cameras, I have lenses, I have lights, I got everything that I need that I can go take out there and do. And I'm not talking about like the really, really cheap stuff that you get like Radio Shack. Like that stuff is the stuff that's like not going to give you a good final product. But you know what I'm talking about, the more affordable, probably knockoff in some cases, but the reasonably priced stuff that you as an individual can buy and own, because that's the kind of stuff that you can shoot with every day. And so it doesn't really matter if you're making a lot of money on the particular project, or if you're just doing something for fun, you have the gear ready to go. But there's other times where it's a bigger budget production. There's clients involved. There are people who are expecting the absolute best. Maybe they have some kind of preconceived notion of like what a production should look like. And those are the kind of environments where you'd want to consider potentially renting something that's more expensive. A lot of people go out and they think they have to spend, $100,000 on the best camera, when if they're only going to use that on a couple different projects, just rent it. Own the cheap $1,000 camera that you can shoot, 4K or whatever it is by yourself. And then if you have a project where you're like, you need a $100,000 camera, just rent it. Same thing with lenses, same thing with lights, audio, especially. All these things, you can just hire somebody else who has the really nice gear because they spent all their money investing in it, and just hire them for the day, throw them a couple $100, whatever it is. And then you're not out all that cash trying to make, all this stuff work for you every day, because you see people get caught up in it, right? The gear. Well, what do I need? Oh, I have to have the best of the best. I got to have all this stuff. You're trying to do, well, I need video and I need audio and I need lights. And it gets really expensive really, really fast if you're going for all that name brand top tier stuff. So just keep that in perspective. A lot of people feel like renting is wasting money, like they're just throwing money away because at the end of the day, they don't have anything to show for it in terms of hardware, in terms of gear. But oftentimes renting makes the most sense because you're saving so much money and you don't have to have the $100,000 camera that you're worried about. All right, now I got to have a job every single day and I've got to charge this much to pay off this camera. I've seen a lot of people do that and they're just not ready for it. Certainly it applies to some people. Some people can make it work. Don't get me wrong. There's a very small group of people who they invest in the really expensive stuff, and that's how they make their money because they have it, right? But you have to have the skills, the talent, the credibility, the years of experience and networking that comes with all that, so you can know that those jobs are coming in. For kind of everyone else, just rent. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. And if you find yourself renting the same thing all the time, then yeah, obviously look at maybe buying that thing or maybe getting the cheaper alternative if you can make it work. But it really comes down to that balance, finding a spot in the middle. And where I like to be, owning the cheap stuff, because guess what? Next year, there's going to be new stuff, better stuff. It's going to be 4K. It's going to be higher frame rates. It's going to be better dynamic range. It's going to be better optics. It's going to be better sound, better light, whatever it is, right? They're always going to have something new. And if you're constantly trying to chase that by buying the most expensive stuff every single year, granted, you could sell stuff and turn it around, but that's a really tough task to be undergoing, where you could just invest in something a little bit cheaper, more affordable, have it for yourself. And then when you need the high-end stuff, when you need the expensive stuff, just rent it, because there's always people renting it out.